Welcome to GED Math in 30 Days. In these tutorials, I will show you how to solve many of the GED math problems using the TI-30XS Scientific Calculator. Welcome to GED Math in 30 Days. Today's lesson will go over more basics for the TI-30XS Scientific Calculator, the only calculator you can use on your GED math exam. And today we will go over decimals, fractions, and percents. So first of all, let's go over common fractions. And today we're going to do proper fractions, improper fractions, mixed numbers. We're going to convert them to decimals and back and forth and vice versa. Okay, so first of all, in order to enter a fraction, you want to hit ND. Of course, the N stands for numerator and the D stands for denominator. Okay, so improper fraction where the numerator is less than the denominator, so 2/5. It's that easy to enter a fraction. Okay, same thing if you want an improper fraction where the numerator is larger than the denominator, so 13/5. Press enter. And then if we want to enter a mixed number. So now that's a little different. And we hit ND. So most people think, okay, we could hit, put our whole number in, then our fraction. It's a little different. So what you do is hit second. Remember, we press second to get any command in the green. And over top the ND, you'll see UND. Okay, that stands for the unit or the whole number, and then ND for the proper fraction. So we're going to hit UND. We're going to put our whole number in. We're going to hit our right arrow. We're going to go to the numerator. And then let's put our numerator in. We're going to hit the down arrow to go to the denominator. And then our right arrow to get out of the fraction and press enter. If you notice, the calculator automatically changes that mixed number into an improper fraction. Okay, so that's how you insert a proper fraction, improper fraction in a mixed number. Okay, so now one of the first 5 questions on your exam, and this is probably, you're going to know how to do this by hand, but let me show you how to do it on the calculator also. And that's changing a improper fraction into a mixed number. Very easy. So again, we're going to use the same example. We're going to use 13/5. Now we're going to get out of the fraction. So we typed it in there. We did not press enter. All we did was put in the fraction, hit the right arrow to get outside of the fraction. But then over top times 10 to the n, you'll see in green, ND, arrow, arrow, UND. Basically what that means is you can toggle back and forth between mixed numbers and improper fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit second. I'm going to hit times 10 to the n. And you'll see on the screen it says ND convert. When you see those 2 arrows, almost means convert, and back and forth. So you can go vice versa, you go either way, and then you press enter. If you notice, it now has the whole number 2 3/5. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do the opposite. We're going to have a mixed number. Again, how do you put a mixed number in? We're going to hit second. We're going to hit ND. We're going to put in our whole number. Our right arrow, we're going to put 1/4 in, so we're going to put 1 as the numerator, hit our down arrow, put the 4 as the numerator, and now we have 5 1/4 as our mixed number. You can't forget to hit that right arrow to get out of the fraction. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit second, and we're going to hit ND. Hold on, Mr. Tinsley. Well, I thought it automatically turned into improper fraction. Yes, it does. So if you have a mixed number, okay, let's do it again. 5 1/4, second, ND, 5 1/4. It automatically turns to an improper fraction. So it's no reason to actually use the function command on your calculator. All we have to do is press enter. So that's how we entered the proper fraction, improper fraction, the mixed number. And then we also learned how to change an improper fraction to a mixed number. And you should be prepared as one of your first 5 questions to change an improper fraction to a mixed number or a mixed number into an improper fraction. So make sure you practice because that's almost one of the first 5. Okay, so our second part of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to change fractions to decimals. Very easy. Okay, so again, so one of the things I do in class is to make sure my students know the fraction, decimal, percent equivalence. Okay, so first of all, let's do a common fraction like 1/5. And all we're going to do is 2 ways we can do it. Okay, you have this, I'll show you both ways. First of all, we're just going to press enter. Enter puts the number into memory. Now we're gonna hit this double arrows, this toggle button. Remember I told you it's like conversion. So here we're gonna hit that double arrows. If you notice, it automatically changes to decimal. So 1/5 is equivalent to 0.2. Okay, another way we could have done it is put our fraction in. Let's do 3/5 this time. And if you notice in green, you see F, arrow, arrow, D. That means vice versa. You can turn fraction into decimals and decimals into fractions. So all we're going to do is hit second. We're going to hit that fraction to decimal button. We're going to press enter. Now, 3/5, the decimal equivalent of 3/5 is 0.6. So now you don't have to do all that division. Now, of course, we understand what a fraction is. So let me explain what a fraction is. Understand this. Okay, so the line between the fraction is like division. So in this book and in my videos, I will use ND for division in most instances. But watch this. 1/5, 1 divided by 5. We get 0.2. 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. So if you can't remember how to use ND all the time, remember that the line between the fraction can be used like the division symbol. Say 1 divided by 5 is 0.2. 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. Now, let's go back. Okay, we have our decimal. Let's enter a decimal. Okay, so what do we remember about our decimals? So we remember we have tenths first, then hundredths, and then thousands. Okay, so let's put 0.23 in. Okay, so 0.23, which means 23 hundredths, because the 2 is in the tenths place, the 3 is in the hundredths place. So we have 0.23, so that's 23 hundredths. So if we want to do it manually, because it's in the hundredths place, the last place it's in, our fraction will be 23 over 100. But let's make sure, watch this. So I'm going to hit the double arrows, and I'm going to press enter. And if you notice, we have 23 over 100. So it's very easy to go from decimals to fractions and fractions to decimal. Doesn't matter what the decimal is. Now I want to show you something. Now here, 23 over 100, it did not reduce it. But watch this. I'm gonna put 0.45 in. So if we did this manually, this will be 45 over 100. Okay. So let me make sure we understand. So 0.45 is the same as 45 over 100. Okay, so we're going to hit our double arrows to convert it to a fraction. But hold on, 9/20ths. I thought it was 45 over 100. Well, if you notice, the TI-30XS calculator reduces the fractions to lowest terms for you. There's no work to do. So if we did this by hand, again, we would have to find the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor that goes into both 45 and 100 is 5. So our greatest common factor is 5. 5 goes into 45 9 times. 5 goes into 120 times. And we have the same exact factor, same exact answer, 9 over 20 or 9/20ths. Okay, so again, look at what the TI-30XS calculator can do for you. First of all, it can reduce a fraction to lowest terms. It can turn an improper fraction to a mixed number. It can turn fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. Okay. Okay, very good. So I'm gonna clear the screen. I'm gonna hit clear on the screen. Remember, delete deletes one space at a time. Clear clears the screen. Now, what I also want you to understand about the basics of this calculator, watch this. It remembers the last 50 things you did. So if you hit the up arrow, you can go to everything you just did. This is very important when you're taking your exam, when you want to review or you flag the question or review, you can now go back to in your calculator to remember or look at the last 50 things you did. So use that up arrow, is very important. Okay, so now we talked about fractions to decimals. And now what's important? Fraction, decimal, percents, equivalents. So we understand what a percent is. Percent means out of 100. So what that means is, so now watch this, 85 out of 100 or 85%. So look what I did. I typed the 85 in, and the percent symbol is here, right above the left parentheses. Because it's in green, I hit the second key and then hit the left parentheses. We have 85%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter. And what I noticed is it changed itself to a decimal automatically. We didn't do anything. Okay, so what if we want to change that to a fraction? Watch this. Now, since it's our next command, the calculator knows what we just put in memory. So we're going to hit the double arrows. And what happens is it automatically knows that you want to convert the last thing you executed to a fraction. That toggle button goes between decimal and fraction. So now we understand that 85% is this equivalent to 0.85, which is equivalent to 17 over 20. Let's make sure that is correct. So 85%. Again, percent means out of 100. So anything with a percent is over 100. So 85 over 100. Okay. Now, the greatest common factor, again, is 5. So 5 is the biggest number that will go in both. So 5 goes into 85 17 times, and 5 goes into 120 times. So again, we got 17 over 20. Remember, percent means out of 100. So if we got 7%, oops, 7%, the fraction would be 7 over 100. Percent means, per means out of, per, if you see the word per, it implies division. So 7%, 7 divided by 100, or 7 out of 100. Let's try it. 7%, so 7. We're going to hit second to get a percent symbol. Now, don't get it confused with the arrow and the percentage right next to it, because remember that arrow, it means to convert, and we'll use that in a minute. So 7%, we're going to hit enter. It tells us 0.07. Okay, so because remember, so let's make sure we understand that. So remember, 7 over 100, we have our decimal, and then we have our tenths, and then we have our hundreds. So how many hundreds do we have? We have 7. We have 7 hundredths. How many tenths do we have? 0. That's why 7 hundredths is 0.07. A lot of people make that mistake in math, and they think it's 0.7. 0.7 would be 7 tenths, not 7 hundredths. Okay, so we want to convert that back to a fraction. So I'm gonna hit my double arrows, and it automatically does it. 7 over 100. So it's very easy to turn a fraction to a decimal to a percent. Okay, very good. Now, let's talk about percentages again. So we went from percentages to decimal to a fraction. Now I showed you how to convert to a decimal. Now we're gonna go change a decimal to a percent, and we're gonna change a fraction to a percent. So again, let's do 0.25. Okay. Now remember, when we could change, so remember what we did before. When we talk about percent, we were dividing by 100. So when you divide by 100, that's moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So let me make sure we understand that. So 85% is 85 over, oops, let me erase that, make it a little bit clearer. 85% is 85 out of 100, which is 8,500. So we have our decimal, we have our tenths, we have our hundreds. So we need 8,500. So our 5 is in the hundreds place, 8,500. But what you should notice, remember, math is about patterns. Very important for you to understand. Math is about patterns. Well, how do you get from the number 85 to 0.85? So what you notice is 85 over 100 means 885 divided by 100. And we know because of powers of 10, when we're dividing by powers of 10, we move the decimal, the number of zeros that you see. For example, since we're dividing by 100, we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So 1, 2. Our new number now is 0.85. Very important for you to understand. Okay, the powers of 10 are very important. So 0.85. So that's how you change a percent to a fraction to a decimal. So now let's use the computer. Let me clear the screen. So we got 25% or 0.25. We're going to change that to a percent. So the opposite of changing a percent to a decimal, we moved it to the left, is now we want to multiply by 100. So when we multiply by 100, we move the decimal 2 places to the right. So we got 1, 2. So our decimal point is now here, and we add a percent sign. So 0.25 is the same as 25 over 100 and the same as 25%. These are called fraction, decimal, percent equivalents. That means they are equal. They just are shown or displayed in a different manner. Just like we have a dollar, we could have 4 quarters, we could have 10 dimes, we could have 20 nickels. They all make up a dollar. It's just different ways you say it. So for example, so 0.25, let me clear the screen. 0.25 is a percent. So now on our calculator, above the right parenthesis, you'll see an arrow and a percent. Remember that arrow means convert. So anytime you look at any of these buttons, if you see those arrows, it means to convert. So we're gonna hit that second, we're gonna hit the right parentheses. So again, 0.25 as a percentage is 25%. Okay, so this is basic math, and some of the things that we've been studying fractions for a while, and it takes weeks. Well, now using the calculator, it now takes days, hours. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Because why? We have all these rules when we're multiplying fractions, and we gotta cross cancel, and then when we're dividing fractions, we gotta keep, change, flip. Watch this. So remember, understand what we did in tutorial today. I showed you how to do a proper fraction and a proper fraction, improper fraction, a mixed number. I showed you how to put a decimal. I showed you how to convert those fractions to decimals and convert those decimals to percents and vice versa. But what we're about to do now is we're going to do operations with decimals, operations with fractions. So now it makes it easy. For example, if I wanted to find 1/5 of 80, okay? So 1/5 of 80 means I'm multiplying. So ND, 1/5 times 80 is 16. Well, watch this. Watch the magic that I'm about to show you. So 1/5 of 80 is 1/5 times 80, which is 16. Okay, well, let's talk about our fraction, decimal, percent equivalents. Okay, so what is 1/5 as a decimal? Let's find out. So 1/5, we're going to convert that by hitting the double arrows, is 0.2. Okay, so let's try 80 times 0.2. 80 times 0.2 is also 16. Okay, well, 1/5 of 80 was 16. 80 times 0.2 is 16. So now we did the fraction, we did the decimal, and now we want to do the percent equivalent. So 0.2 is the same as 20%. Why is it the same as 20%? Let's make sure we understand. So 0.2 is the decimal. And remember, when we want to change to a percent, we move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2, we have our decimal. There's nothing here, so we add a 0. So 20%. But guess what? Say if I didn't remember. Okay, I don't remember how to do that. That's all right. But what you do know is that 0.2 can be easily changed to a percent, 20%. So now instead of 1/5 or 0.2, now what's 20% of 80, which is a common question on the GED exam. It's almost on every exam where you have to find a percentage of a number. They usually use either some type of commission or some type of sales tax or tip at a restaurant. But watch this. So 20%, 20%. So second, to add that percent sign, times 80. If you notice, we didn't have to change it to a decimal. we just put the 20% in and multiplied it by 80. So again, fraction, decimal, percent, equivalent. I would recommend knowing all your common fractions. So for example, 1/2 is 0.5, 50% of 50%. 1/3 is 0.33 as a decimal, 33% as a decimal. 1/4 is 0.25 as a decimal, and 25% as a percent. 1/5 is 0.2 as a decimal, 20% as a percent. And I'm gonna skip 1/6 and 1/7 because they're not common. 1/8 is 0.125. So let's make sure we understand that we can change any fraction to a decimal. So ND, 1/8, hit that right arrow to get out of that fraction, hit those double arrows, press enter. So 1/8, we can always change any fraction to a decimal. It's easy. Or we could just do simple 1 divided by 8. Okay, it's 0.125. So now if we want to change that to a percent, we can hit second, hit the arrow on percentage, means convert to a percentage. So 1/8, which is 0.125, is the same as 12.5%. Okay, let me clear the screen. Okay, so it's very important for you to understand that fraction, decimal, percent, equivalence. I want you to spend the next couple of days using the calculator to put fractions in, changing the decimals, changing the fractions, and vice versa. Okay. So that was the basics of fractions, decimals, and percents. This is a foundational skill that you need in order to take and pass the GED math exam. So I want you to practice on the TI-30XS calculator for the next couple of days. I will spend 1 or 2 days. Now, it's not going to take long, maybe 15 minutes a day. You do it about 10, 15, 20 times, just so you can commit it to memory, so you know how to do it. Okay, so that means converting an improper fraction to a mixed number, converting an improper fraction to a decimal, to a mixed number. Again, we can do all these things with this calculator. For example, I have 1.2. I can change that to a fraction. I can change that to a mixed number. I can change it back to a decimal. Okay, so these are the things that you want to prepare if I wanted to change that back to an improper fraction. Oops. 1 1/5. So remember, that toggle button goes both ways. So first we change it to an improper fraction, and then we use it again to turn it back into an improper fraction. So again, we use it the first time to change it to a mixed number. We use the same button because we see those double arrows and change it back to an improper fraction. That's your lesson for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I want you to spend the next couple days, at least 15 minutes a day, practicing with the TI-30XS calculator. And I'll see you in our next lesson. Have a good day.